My name is Sandra Petty. I'm a reporter from Newsday on Long Island. I'm looking for people who were jurors on the Sonny Franzese case.
Hey Frank, it's Bobby from Newsday. Just had a question for you on our Sonny Franzese documentary.
Listen, nobody wants any part of that whole thing. I'm not going to do anything that's going against what they want, you know?
Sonny Franzese, in and out of jail most of his life, was the underboss or the number 2 guy in the Colombo crime family.
We're doing this documentary on the Franzese family.
I was kind of hoping this would all go away because, first of all, can I speak to you off the record?
Yes.
He was the underboss. He was close to the snake. They're both from the same vicious school. Mass killers and totally unrepentant.
Yeah, but why are you calling? I want to know. How'd you get this number? Because it's a private number.
Oh, we have all sorts of databases.
But who are you?
Phone numbers. That could be good.
He had organized crime in his soul. He was just who he is.
He's got a lot of bodies on him. Well, what's the count, 40 or 50? I mean, he'd twist you in a pretzel if you look at him the wrong way.
How unusual do you think it is for your father to talk to reporters?
We were always told that you could never trust them because all reporters work with the FBI. We were prejudiced against it from when we were kids.
Has there ever been a family like this in American history? I don't think so. I don't know if Shakespeare could have came up with something like this. Ambition, greed, retribution, reformation, loyalty. It's all there.
What do you do with a guy who just refuses to obey the law? He's in jail not because of the system, but because of him. I have no sympathy for him whatsoever.
When is he getting out?
His release date is Sunday.
Good, I'm happy to hear that. He should give me some good news.
That could be him.
Sandra, get ready.
And that's the guy in the New York.
Is it? Yeah.
These are for Sonny? You have Sonny Franzese? You don't have him? Okay.
How do you know him?
What's the difference?
My impression of Sonny?
Yeah.
Very good-looking guy, ladies' man, so I had a lot of girlfriends. Didn't drink or smoke, but treacherous. Killed a lot of people. And was very well respected by the guys under him. They idolized him.
So what makes Sonny different from other wise guys is that he seems so regular. He's the kind of guy you'd invite to a backyard barbecue. But the reality is darker and deeper. He was just as capable of murder as he was of changing a neighbor's flat tire. His criminal enterprise stretched from the peep shows in Times Square to barbershops on Long Island. We found out that Sonny was getting out of prison in 2017. He was 100 years old, and he was the oldest inmate in the federal prison system. And that's when we started trying to land an interview with him.
Hey Tommy, it's Bobby Cassidy from Newsday. Just wanted to talk to you about our documentary on Sonny. Give me a call when you get a chance.
We going forward?
Yeah, so I don't know, Frankie Duality said he was going to call you, and we're looking to do this on Friday. Looks like it's going to happen on Friday.
Hey Bobby, how's the newspaper going?
It's doing good.
It should be doing good. A lot of papers went out of business. They put me here because I had to learn how to walk again. Which I do walk now.
Okay.
I didn't walk before, but now I walk. I'm getting better every day. I'm just another man, that's all. I ain't looking for no glory. I ain't looking for no credit.
What'd you do after the army?
Same thing. I went on the street. Who's that? Hey, honey. Well, I had a little money. I won gambling in the army. I took it home and I started buying businesses, Then they opened up a club, another club, and I started making big money. Never under my name, though. I couldn't get a license.
Why?
I was a bad guy.
Not then.
Yeah. My mother said I was bad since I was born. Said I was bad when I was in the stomach. I had a hell of an experience in life, I'll tell you the truth.
How did Sonny Franzese come across your radar?
Sonny Franzese was an infamous character, an infamous defendant in a major Eastern District case going back to the 60s. So he came up on my radar screen because I'd heard about him. I started reading about him.
What made him infamous?
My dad told me he got straightened out to be a good fellow when he was 14 years old.
Guy Furtado was making consensual recordings against then underboss of the Colombo crime family, Sonny Franzese. You'd find yourself often stop taking notes because you just would get caught up in the story. His first homicide, I think he was 14 or 15.
He did like to talk about acid, and I assumed he had some experience with acid.
Sonny was very relatable and charismatic in the way he spoke. So he's not somebody that even listening to him would put you off. But when it struck him, he would divert into criminality. You'd be talking about great food at a restaurant 1 minute and then the dismemberment of a body literally a minute later. And then back to the marble they're installing in the club and how thick it should be.
What did he say about acid?
That the bones dissolve in the acid.
The kiddie pool and dismembering and then going to a restaurant.
Because I think in one of our body shops, there was an acid pool.
Putting it in a microwave.
I know people who say he didn't even know how to turn on a microwave.
Well, there's a truth to that. But he might have known how to make use of one.
He goes, well, what about the skull? And Sonny's like, what? He's like, the skull. And he's like, the what? He's like, the skull, the head. What about the skull? It won't fit. And he goes, oh, you dry it in the microwave and then you crack it with a hammer and then you push the pieces down there.
But every time he saw that damn acid and thought about it, that was his thing. Hey, that's good. Remember that.
Before I even met the man, when I became a new agent, his street reputation was, he was a very, very tough man, very articulate, very intelligent.
Most people know who he is when they meet him, and they know what he represents. They know he's a mob guy, and he's a serious mob guy.
He was a likable guy. But on the other hand, though, and you listen to him on the tapes, if you go out there and try and get the money, he doesn't give it to you, you leave him on the floor. If there was ever two sides to someone, that's the two sides of Sonny.
Me, I never murdered nobody. Let me ask you, a face like that, could he be a murderer?
You'll never get my father. I mean, I know him my whole life, and he'd never tell me who he killed. But here's what he'd do. I'd be driving down the Bell Parkway, right? And he'd go like this, over here, son. And for a while, I don't know what the hell he was doing. And then I asked him, I said, what is this? He said, you don't, I gotta explain to you that's why you'll never be like me. He said, around here there was some work done, now let's go. That's all he never.
Who's that?
The FBI had a bug in your kitchen in 1962. And this is their activity log listening to you in your kitchen.
And they said they never had it.
I found it in a court file.
How'd you get these off of them?
I pulled it from the court records. I went to New York City Archives. That was in your kitchen on Shrub Hollow Road in Roslyn.
They never topped my house.
But they did.
No, never. Had an idea, but they denied it, so we couldn't get it, so we figured it wasn't true.
You know, my dad and I used to talk in our house, straight scoop. We go into the bathroom, turn on the faucet, flush the toilet, and talk next to the sink. That's how careful we were. And that was his direction, not mine. I used to think he was nuts. Dad, come on, it could be the bug in the house. You know, so he would never get himself on tape, but the things I heard he said, God. You know, when I told him, I said, Dad, I got 200 hours on tape. It ain't me. I said, what do you mean it ain't you? He's not, they doctored the tape. I said, Dad, I heard the tapes, they're bad. It ain't me. He told me. I said, all right, it ain't you. But I said, when you hear him, you're going to say it sounds familiar.
This is the FBI's notes.
They read them, miss. I can't see anyway.
Franzese and his wife argue over his income. Mrs. Franzese says, does it cost a lot to support me? Call from Freddie for Franzese. Marianne receives phone call. Franzese and wife have a heated argument. Argument ensues about Sonny not taking care of John while she was on the phone with doctor. Slap the wife's face, wife threatens to leave. Goes on and on.
I have to go to sleep nights and talk to myself. It upsets and lets me realize all the years I did in jail for something I never did. Couldn't believe it. Money I gave guys. No one of them sent me a dime. They're all deathly afraid.
Of who?
Huh?
Who were they afraid of?
I don't know. They were afraid of themselves because they knew they were weak. So they figured maybe I might weaken. But I can't weaken. I can't hurt people for no reason. I can't do it.
In the wake of the Second World War, many of the people who were involved in organized crime began to move to Long Island. Certainly, there were factions of all 5 families that were functioning on Long Island and making money for organized crime.
It was in the neighborhood, and people were much more permissive about organized crime. It was very ever-present. It was prevalent.
Everybody depends upon them. They went into hotels, restaurants, they were in the carting industry, they were in garbage industries.
Long Island was mobbed up, there's no doubt about it. I mean, we were into everything out here.
Sonny, he was a committed, wise guy.
This was his master's degree, this getting made, you hear? Let me put it this way. John Gotti was the shadow of Sonny Franzese.
Gotti would say the most ridiculous things. You guys ever hear of Sonny Franzese? Tough guy. Sonny Franzese. Tough guy. Sonny Franzese was a tough guy. And he'd say it different ways, like 20 times. But he really, really respected Sonny Franzese.
You know what I had? If I tell you, you won't believe it. I had prison guards, officials come up to me, telling me, you know something? I went through your whole case. You don't write on cops, you don't write on nobody. He said, if I had to commit a crime, I'd come and look for you. May God strike me dead. You want to know how I did the time? He said, yeah, one day at a time.
Have you always done physical training in your life?
Well, listen, when I was away, I ran 5 miles a day every day. And then I would go and play handball. And I would win too, believe it or not. When I was in Kansas, Leavenworth, the whole office, lunchtime, used to come down and watch me play handball. Everybody, all the women, everybody used to come down. I used to see them and ready to sneak in, you know. They couldn't understand how I did it.
Yeah.
But, you know, I learned one thing, determination is stronger than anything, you know?
Yep.
Make up your mind to do something, you do it.
What was it like living there when Sonny was there?
It was very exciting. What was interesting was probably the FBI or the police watched the house for about a year on a 24-hour basis. They were 8-hour shifts, 2 men in a car with binoculars and a clipboard. Franzese, the gentleman that he was, you know, he would often bring them coffee and donuts, or he would tell them, he says, we're going out for lunch at such and such a restaurant. He says, and we'll be there for an hour. And sometimes they would come and sit at another table. My mother's sister once had a flat tire in front of my house, and John Franzese came out with his suit. The bodyguard was the one with the gun. I don't think Sonny carried the gun. He gave the jacket to the bodyguard. He changed my aunt's tire. And he was just wonderful in my eyes.
There's a duality that comes with most criminals. I'm not a psychologist, but to me are clearly narcissistic sociopaths, right? And that's part of their way that they survive. They can be great fathers, sometimes great husbands, but there's another part of them that they can tap into whenever they want to that is incredibly vicious and violent and manipulative. That's why I never begrudged families, because they didn't see that side of it. They saw Poppy, they saw Grandpa, they saw Dad. So to them, this was like you telling them that this person led a secret life that they don't want to believe.
On the front. Oh, here on the right. Thank you.
If you could just talk a little bit about growing up on Long Island first.
Okay. Well, on Michael's graduation.
High school, 69, my dad threw a big party for us in the backyard. Got a tent.
We had a big tent in my backyard.
We had everybody there. And Norby Walters, you remember that name? He brought some big acts that day. And
me and Michael Nardone, we were young kids, and we walked all the way down the block where diagonally across the two agents would be sitting. And we walked by the car. He rolled the window down and he called us over. And he pulled a gun out and said, "This is for your father."
a few weeks after that, I'm in school and kids are starting to talk, my dad got a subpoena to come to Nassau County, and it was all about my father. What were you doing at the party, and so on and so forth. So, it was a lot of stuff like that we endured during that time.
To grow up as a Franzese, I just can't imagine how that must have been. Again, just like a Shakespearean tragedy.
Growing up in school got a little difficult for me. It always seemed that everyone would refer to me as my father's son.
Oh, your dad's in the Mafia, your dad's a murderer, and that really hurt, and I had a couple of fights in the school. I almost got expelled once because of a fight I had.
All my good friends, and even the girls, stopped talking to me. They wouldn't come near me. Their parents didn't want them to be friends with me. I wasn't a real tough kid in school.
My dad, to me, was my hero. He tried to be as normal a dad as he possibly could be. He'd come to my baseball games and participate in all the family activities as much as he could. And I remember thinking back how it was always an event when he would come to any place,
I remember there was a Little League game. I ran really hard to first base. I grounded out. I don't think I got a hit all year. And he saw me dejected. And this is where my dad always confused me. My father showed up, not Sonny Franzese. He came over to me and he said, "Hey son, what are you upset about?" He said, "Don't worry about it, you'll get better." He says, "The way you hustled down there, I'm proud of you, son." There was a part of that in him that was really good.
The whole story, the fact that put somebody in a cement block and then they weren't smart enough to cut his stomach open, and he floats up to the surface and washes ashore, and that's how the whole thing started. It's kind of wacky.